Hello and welcome to our What's New webinar series. As mentioned in previous sessions, this is designed to summarize and take you through the changes that have been made to Colleague as part of our latest release. So in this case, that's release 24.08.02. If you'd like to ask any queries, please do so via the Q&A area in this session. If you could try to keep those queries in line with the features that are being shown, that would be ideal. This session is also being recorded, and subscribers to the What's New series will be sent a copy of the session after the session is complete. So let's get started. So effectively the release 24.08.02 that was deployed last weekend. So it's deployed the weekend of the 7th and 8th. That's when the release went out. But in terms of just going through the sort of basics, in terms of what users would experience when they log in after an upgrade, in the notifications area, there'll be a notification to advise that you have been upgraded. If you got access to, or if you're subscribed to the release notes, then you'll be informed through an email as well with access to those release notes. It's also on our social media as well. If you follow our social medias, we'll obviously make you aware when there's releases that are happening. But you can also click on the question mark icon, and it will always show the release that is currently live or just been released at the top of the help file. It'll advise the current release, and it will also give you a summarized video on the functionality of that release. As well as that, obviously it will give you links to be able to click through into there and obviously look at the release notes. So in this session, effectively what we'll do is we'll look to cover and go through each of the features of the release one after the other, and effectively, as I say, ask any questions as we go by all means. So the first point to cover is the Ordnance Survey postcode lookup integration that we've been able to do. So that's effectively to say that predominantly for UK businesses, obviously, but in the scenario of adding an address for a UK address, there's now the option to enter a postcode, a UK postcode, and do a lookup, and it will bring back the addresses that are associated to that postcode. So there could be up to 50 addresses associated to a postcode. You click in a postcode, click on a magnifying glass, and it will give you a drop-down list of all of those addresses. You select one of those addresses, and obviously it can then populate the address field and save that admin. So effectively, we've got a couple of ways or a couple of things to kind of cover as part of setting that up. First and foremost, you need to go to OS Data Hub and basically set up an account. So there's a Ordnance Survey website where you need to set up an account, and from there you can then set up a project and create an API key. What I've tried to do in the release notes is basically give you a step-by-step guide in terms of how you do that. There is an associated cost in relation to the functionality, in that it charges, our Ordnance Survey charge 1p per address lookup, but there is also a free of charge 60-day trial period. So there's no cost for just trying out this functionality if you want to put it in place and see whether or not it's something you want to use moving forwards. You can also see on your dashboard, against your, let me log in here. You'll be able to see how many transactions have been made as well. So you'll be able to see like the associated cost, over a month period has happened, and give you a feel for what associated cost that would be. So I've done 13 address lookups this month. That's 13p. So obviously the money's not particularly high, but obviously in the real world you do more than that. But yeah, you follow the instructions in terms of registering an account, creating an API key, and then in terms of adding that API key to Colleague, that's done within the admin area. So you go to admin, and then you go to global settings, and then you've got a global setting here for Ordnance Survey API key. So you paste in your API key that you got from your account, from your project. You paste that into there, and then it's basically in place. There's no colleague cost, obviously. You just put it in that global setting and it's in place. But from Ordnance Survey perspective, obviously there are then costs to using it from their side in terms of that account. But if I then go into I'll go into a candidate record, for example, and if I go to add new address, what I'll do is I'll use HQ postcode in here. If I put that in there and hit that magnifying glass, you can then see that you get a drop-down list of the addresses associated with that postcode. You can then select one of those addresses, hit OK, and it populates the address lines with the details that have been found. And that's obviously the same if you were an existing one as well. If you were an existing postcode, you can obviously click on that. Again, it'll give you the existing postcodes associated to that. So one more time, if I go to add new address, paste in a postcode or type in a postcode, hit on that magnifying glass, and then you can select whatever it is that you want to select associated to that postcode. Hit OK, the details get pulled through, it's saved. And that's the same for all of the address fields throughout the system. That magnifying glass has been added, and it only appears if there's a API key added to that global setting. So just to be aware, that's obviously available for you to now use if you wish to put that in place. Next thing along is the one that was slightly troublesome, I'll be honest, in relation to updating and upgrading our notes areas. It needed to happen because it's for the longest time our notes area has been plain text, and ultimately that is quite restrictive in terms of formatting, and more so around things like job descriptions, and generally sort of detailed notes that are held against certain record types. Ultimately, just having it in plain text is obviously quite limiting in a formatting style. So we wanted to get to a place where when you're in the notes area of a record, obviously the formatting is as per it can be in other areas of the system, where it can be whatever formatting you want it to be, and that can include obviously adding an image or putting whatever text and styling that is required. What we did is we upgraded our notes CK editor, which is what this tool is used for displaying that. In doing so, because an upgraded version of the CK editor was applied to the system, that's what meant that users had to do a hard refresh. When they went, the browsers needed a hard refresh to be able to pull through that latest CK editor versioning, which was an unfortunate necessity to the update. So that's why users obviously experienced that when they logged in, and if so, this would have been blank. They did a hard refresh, it came back, and it was then shown. We've also got a new kind of minimize toolbar option as well. So in the larger sort of text view, there's a minimize toolbar here, and then obviously you've got a button there for clicking, and obviously that will then show you the rest of the options. And for a more from a width perspective, or minimized version of the note field, again you have a minimized toolbar in that scenario as well. It's also useful for things like when you're generating an email as the key scenario. You've got obviously an ability to enter in, the minimized toolbar is just a little bit cleaner on the eye, whereas before it was always maximized, and it takes quite a lot of real estate on the page being that way. So now it's kind of minimized, it's a lot cleaner to work with. So that was the other factor that we sorted out as well. We have had some feedback in relation to the new CK editor, a few buttons that users want to see added that are either missing or features added to it. So we're working through those at the moment in the current sprint, and they'll just be added to the toolbars and to the CK editor moving forwards. And obviously users will just see those options following the next release. But that's the notes section that was updated as part of obviously that build. The next point along is to do with checklists, and that's to do with an ability to complete a checklist item. So before now, it's always been that anyone can complete a checklist item. I'll just uncomplete that now again. Before now, anyone could complete a checklist item, regardless of their user group. Whereas what we've now done is we've updated the checklist area. So if I go back to admin, this checklist area here, you obviously configure checklists from within here. But what's now been added is this extra user groups option here. And what that means is that you can select which user groups obviously have the rights to complete the item. If it's a case that it's a state of non-selected, which will be the case across the board when this was deployed, that means everyone, again, can still anyone can complete a checklist item. But if you change it to be, for example, a user group which you're not part of, if you then went to go and try and complete a checklist item, you'd get this message advising that your user group, mine being admin, cannot complete this checklist item. If I was to change that to either include admin or now be admin, and I go back to our record, click here, obviously I can now complete it because obviously I'm on one of the checklist items, or one of the user groups, sorry, that's got permissions to complete that item. So obviously, as again, they'll all be set to none, but if you want to configure who can complete an item, obviously the option is there to do so now. And that's for all of the checklists on all of the entities. Next one along is the options button from linked candidates. So if we go to a company record, obviously in the company, and I'll just refresh the company record, I've had it open for a little while. Yeah, when you're in the company record, if you want to see the candidates that have ever been placed with this company, you can go to view more, where it says linked candidates, click on that. It gives you all of the candidates that have been placed there, and ultimately an ability to see based on different placement terms, whether or not it's current or future or past placements. Obviously you have that view, but what you previously couldn't do is decide on the columns, whereas now there's an options section in the toolbar. You can go to there and select other column options that you might want to see when you're looking at that overview for linked candidates. So that's the column options that have been added there. Next one along is the initial notice field on the requirement. So yeah, I mean, effectively on a requirement, you've got a notice period field. And on a placement, you've got the notice period field, but you've also got an initial notice period field for that kind of probationary period that obviously contractors and placements will have. So what you now basically got is that same field option in the requirement, and it carries over into the placement. So you've got the notice period, which is the primary notice period, and then you've got the initial notice period, which is obviously an option that's there now as well. And then, yeah, effectively, if you were to arrange an offer, you'll see those fields obviously pull through into the offer form, and that just means that, yeah, you've got a full track, and you don't have to remember to update the initial notice period on the requirement, sorry, on the offer or placement when you get further down the line. So that's the option that's been added there. So next one along is to do with umbrella placements, or should I say, having an overview of all of the placements associated with an umbrella company. So if we go back to the company record, and this is another area that's been now added to the company. It's off the View More menu, and it's called Limited Umbrella Placements. But what we're basically allowing for is from all the instances where this company has been assigned as an umbrella placement, as umbrella company to a placement. This will list all of the placements where that's the case. So you're going to click on that. It will list all of those placements. Again, in the same functionality as linked candidates, to be honest, you've got the same ability to filter based on different types, and obviously whether or not it's a current or future or past placement, it's a full view of all the instances where this company has been the umbrella to a placement. And obviously there's an options section there for, you know, defining the columns that you want to see when you're in this area. So that's a new section that's been added to the company. It's called Limited/Umbrella Placements. You click on that and it will give you all the times where this company in particular has been the umbrella placement or the umbrella company to a placement. Next one along is the tasks options. So yeah, obviously you've got obviously the tasks area, as you'd expect. You open that up and it loads all of the tasks that you have. But you now have, I mean, there's always been sort of next that you can sort of filter it based on specific time ranges, but we were asked basically to put in there today and tomorrow as two key filters that are obviously useful for kind of task management. So those are in there now in terms of the start date of the task and in terms of the due date of the task. You've got today and tomorrow in there now as well. So if you have view all, you've got next 30 days, next 60 days and so on, but you've also just got today and tomorrow been added there as well. The next one along is there's just minor UI stuff that we've done, and that's to do with, in this case, it's search phrases. So if I go back to, go to here, effectively when you're in a search now, you'll see this little information icon on the text criteria page. You've got that little information icon here, and you can click on that and it will take you to a list of example Boolean phrases there that you can use. So just obviously just giving people a bit of training support on how they should use Boolean phrases and what the options they have available to them when they're text criteria searching. So that option was added, more of a UI. Obviously, there's no new functionality associated with that. It's just more UI update to sort of help people with receiving that information. Likewise, we've added a help section to a lead. So again, just with a view to just providing some detail for users when they're in a record. So in the leads area, you can see this help option on the right hand side, and then this obviously leads you through to a user guide. So yeah, the idea is we'll continue to add in these user guides and these help options to give you a means to either have that user guide option for that particular section of the system that you're in. Obviously, the option is there to give feedback as well. That takes you through into our feedback survey, and also there's if you need to contact support about anything, there's a link through to the support details for the support team. So it's just a useful option that we're adding throughout the system. And then we get into bug fixes. I mean, a key update that we made has been relating to personal settings and the way they're being held. There's been a sort of a long-standing issue that we've been working through, and that's to do with column options being remembered against user sessions, and we've updated how those settings are being stored, and effectively it's with a view to that now hopefully being a resolution to that finally. We made some tweaks before now trying to resolve it, but we ended up having to rewrite that whole setting storage functionality so that it was we could be certain that it would always retain your column preferences. So what you should find now is there's no scenarios where column options are forgotten for whatever reason, or entity listing in terms of entity numbering that you want to assign to lists. They should all just be remembered as you'd expect now. Other than that, it's obviously just other bug fixing that's been done, which is just standard with any software development. So that's the functionality of the build. Just want to check. Okay. Right, fine, okay. Next thing along then is basically just a refresh on, not a refresh, a heads up on things that are coming. So there's some other functionality that we're working on currently as part of our current sprint. So to give you an idea of what's going on there. First and foremost, our WhatX integration, which is a big update that will be part of the next build, and obviously I'll go through that in more detail as part of the next What's New when that is released. But what that's basically going to offer is a way for users to upload records to WhatX and send messaging via WhatX. What I mean by that is obviously your WhatsApp integration, effectively. So what will happen is you'd create a WhatX account. Your username and password is added to your user settings, and then when you're in a record in the system, there'll be the ability to upload that record to WhatX. WhatX will give you an ability to obviously run conversations with candidates in WhatsApp. Obviously all those conversations are then being stored as history in the system. So you have obviously all the details here obviously being stored against the record in terms of WhatsApp history. And also for non-users of WhatX, obviously they have again access to history, but they'll also have an ability to click on that WhatX option and see the conversation history as well. So it's for users of WhatX, they'll have that they'll download that extension tool and they'll put that in place, and then when they're on a record, once they've uploaded it to WhatX, they'll be able to click on that and then obviously have those conversations. They'll obviously be being recorded as histories. And then for non-users of WhatX that don't have that access to that extension tool, they'll just be able to go to here and obviously have access to just the conversation in terms of seeing how that plays out. So that's the functionality that's been added as part of the current sprint in terms of our integration with WhatX. It's done through a third party, but again, I will send all the details on how that's set up, the associated pricing with that, and then effectively it will be for clients to decide whether or not they wish to proceed with that as an integration. The other heads up on functionality that we're currently working on as well that I wanted to give was related to our form builder. So that's basically to say that we're working on a way for users to be able to create their own forms in the system. And that basically means that when they go into admin, there'll be this extra section called form builder. They'll be able to click on there and then they'll be able to create new tabs related to different entities, and from there they'll be able to move around fields, they'll be able to rename fields as they want to, they'll be able to add fields in this area, add to different page elements, and also widgets as well that we're building. They'll be added into this area as well. So there'll be lots of kind of how-to videos and content around how to actually use this functionality once we've released it, and it's probably still going to be a couple of months yet before it's finally finalized. But for those that obviously have taken the time to watch this session, I wanted to give obviously a heads up on that functionality as well. But that covers the what's new session. I will just check. There's no Q&A there. Right, okay, good stuff. Thank you very much for your time, and see you again at the next what's new session. All the best. Take care.